What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bob's Garage. Today we're going to talk about changing the rear brakes on an Audi S4. Okay, so I had the heater core problem at the end of December, and I basically replaced it on Christmas Day and put the car back together right before New Year's Eve or so. So what ended up happening is, like, the first week or so of January, I was having some really bad squealing noises with my rear passenger brake, and it was, I would say, probably about 5 below or even 10 below outside. Very cold, very bitter, and I had spent many hours working on my car to fix the heater core. So I kind of basically put off checking the brakes, and I figured, well, once they start squealing, you have a little bit of time. Well, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, to the point where it sounded like I had murdered someone every time I was pressing my brakes down. So what I did was I went and picked up some pads. I basically just knew I needed new brakes anyway, so I went to the store, picked up some pads, and the helpful guy at the at AutoZone had told me that I needed a special tool to compress the brake caliper, the rear brake caliper. I guess the guy had worked on a Volkswagen in the past and he knew about this. So he rented me the tool that I needed, and I went home and took it all apart. Well, once I took it apart, I realized that I had some major problems on my hand here with this brakes. Basically, the brake material, the friction material, had crumbled off the pad completely. So one pad was essentially missing all of the material, while the other pad, it was so brittle it pretty much cracked off. So I replaced the pads with new ones, just nothing major, or nothing fancy, I should say, and they worked out well. I did use the compression tool to compress the caliper piston, and that went pretty well. There's just a couple little dots that lock into the piston. So you lock the two dots into the piston holes, and then you turn a screw essentially, and as you turn it, it compresses the piston. So what's a little bit different about these Audis, if you are watching this and haven't played it or taken apart your rear brakes before, the Audis require that the brake piston, or I'm sorry, the caliper piston, that it not only be pushed in, but it has to be spun, or essentially like a screw. So as you push in that piston to compress it, you have to turn it as well. So that was something new to me. At this point, I had only owned my S4 for probably about a month or so, maybe 5 weeks. So I hadn't worked on it yet. And all the cars in the past that I had worked on, I would just use a big metal C-clamp and clamp it down, and that would compress the piston. So I'm glad that the guy had told me about needing that tool, because I would have had no clue and potentially would have damaged my caliper if I would have just used a straight up C-clamp rather than the special tool that twists while it pushes in. So after replacing that those brake pads, everything was good. I did pull off the driver's side rear, and those pads were fine. So at this point, I believe that those passenger brake pads, there was something wrong. Either they were bad pads themselves. I'd never seen a brake pad crumble off like that. So it's hard to say. I did have a little bit of warning. Like I said, I was getting screeches and squeals and all that. So, but that's my fault for putting it off. So stay tuned, everyone, and comment, rate, subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesome S4 videos.